following program is available in high definition on Channel 700. This program is designed and produced by the community with the support of TV Cogeco.
Hello, I'm Mayor Rick Goldring, and welcome to Burlington Matters. Burlington Matters is a relatively new program on TV Cogeco featuring people and organizations that are influencing the future of the city of Burlington. With me today, we're going to be talking about economic development, but with me today are three guests. We have, to my far left, is the chair of the board of the Burlington Economic Development Corporation, Gary Graham. And then we have Anita Cassidy, who's the manager of special projects for the BEDC, and Frank McKeown, the executive director of the Burlington Economic Development Corporation. So I guess it was about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we pressed the reset button on economic development in Burlington. What's happened, Frank, in the last 18 months?
Well, thank you very much, Rick. It's a pleasure to be here today. First of all, I think that we've had a very busy year and a half. Economic development's been focused on kind of traditional economic development activities, but also on some really critical activities that we have to address within Burlington. I think number one, in terms of what's happened, we've taken a really hard look at what our policies and practices are and where we're actually trying to get to. That led to a project that Anita will talk about a little later, but we've actually created an entire economic strategy really for the city. And taking a look at all the things that we have to do over the next 5, 10, 15 years to make sure that from an economic perspective, the city is progressing so that the quality of life that we have can be maintained. So I think that's been a really critical part. And with that, there's a whole series of projects and initiatives that are taking place that hopefully we're going to talk about over the next 15 or 20 minutes.
And briefly, I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this program that have heard the terminology economic development, and they probably know in broad terms what it is, but how would you define it from your point of view?
Economic development for a city it's really about making sure that the balance between residential activity and your work life can be balanced. So we have to have enough jobs so as many people as possible can work here. We need a tax base that helps support the things that have to be done in a city, so we need that balance in terms of tax. And the other thing is we have a whole bunch of different institutions in the community, and economic development plays that I'll say leadership role, but really coordination role to make sure that all these things are lining up, and really tries to make sure that when decisions are made, economic development is certainly one of the things that's considered. It's certainly not the only thing ever, but it does have to be considered as we make decisions both for the short term and the long term for the city.
Gary, what are the organization's priorities for the medium and longer term?
Well, there are many, many priorities that we would like to be pursuing. The board wants there to be a focus really on one top priority, and there are some secondary ones as well. The top priority is to make sure that the official plan, the sort of guiding land development planning document for the city, is aligned with the economic strategy that the city wants to pursue. And so that is the top priority, is to get those two things in sync. And until that happens, it's difficult to make development decisions that will help everyone achieve the economic development objectives that we have. So that's the key focus. There are other priorities as well, a couple that I'll mention. One is the Regional Innovation District, Advanced Manufacturing Hub, also known as the Advanced Manufacturing Hub, which is an exciting initiative. And help me out here, Anita.
Startups.
Oh, yes. There's a terrific project that an organization called Hive is leading, is central to, and that's the development of what might be called an ecosystem that supports entrepreneurship. So if you're an entrepreneur or an innovator, you need access to the right financial advice, accounting advice, legal advice, and frankly, you need to know who the angel investors are, where you can raise money, and what you have to do in order to do that. And so enabling entrepreneurs is through this Hive concept is another priority for economic development.
Just before I go to Anita, Gary, you mentioned advanced manufacturing. And certainly there's a view that the manufacturing sector has been beat up a little bit by globalization and increased higher technology. Can you give us a definition of advanced manufacturing?
Well, manufacturing is highly, highly technology driven these days. There's a series of commercials that I would encourage the viewers to look up on YouTube. If they just searched GE Millennial commercial, you'll see them. The Madison Avenue is so powerful when it does things right. These make the point that the future of manufacturing is about software engineering and machines talking to each other, and it's highly technical. The IT sector doesn't have a monopoly on technology. Advanced manufacturing is very technology driven, and it's a lot sexier than people think it is. It's not lunch buckets anymore. It's not punch clocks anymore. It's highly technology driven.
Anita, it took us a little while to get to the point where we could identify the strategic priorities, and you were out connecting with a lot of people. Can you tell us about that process?
Absolutely. So as part of the city's new strategic plan process that they're working through, the city asked us to identify a 10-year economic vision for the city. And as part of that process, I actually went out and met one-on-one with over 80 stakeholders in the community and interviewed them.
So what type of people were you connecting with?
Developers, realtors, business owners, councillors, officials at the region, not-for-profit organizations, a whole range of different people who represent different values and different areas of our economy. And so that helped us identify some key priorities, which is exactly the priorities that we then fed back into the BDC in terms of priorities, and we're feeding up into the strategic plan at the city. So exactly as Gary talked about, we're focusing on those key sectors that we need to look at. The startup piece, there was a broad understanding that we have a very diverse economy here, but what we weren't doing traditionally in economic development is we were focused on those mid and large size organizations instead of looking at those smaller businesses and how do we help them grow. And statistically, if we look at the research on where jobs are coming from, most of the jobs are actually coming in that first 1 to 5 years of a company's life cycle. So we really need to be focusing our energies there on how we can generate more of those jobs in those areas. And I think the other key area that came out of the economic vision was a much broader area than just BDC is dealing with, and that's the growth agenda, which is being incorporated into the city's strategic plan at the moment. The fact that not only can we not just have employment growth, we need to have residential growth at the same time to retain that competitive and diverse labor force, particularly in that millennial group, that young professional group that companies need to drive them forward.
So let's talk about the demographics, Frank. You've taken a hard look at this. We are an older city compared to many in the area, and we do have a dearth of younger people. Can you give us your thoughts about some of the direction we can go down as far as creating opportunities for younger people in our community?
So certainly what Anita raised obviously is critically important. When we look at economic development, the council is looking for an increase in the number of jobs, increased investment. If you want to attract employers, you have to have young people here. Those are the employers people are looking for. Gary talked about, yes, we have a manufacturing base. When we go door to door and talk to manufacturers, they're looking for IT people. That's what the demand is as they continue to digitize and automate. So we really do believe that the city has to continue to grow, and we have to attract young people and frankly newcomers too, and immigrants to our community. On that side, one of the things we've started doing is working with the various institutions in the area. We have between 10 and 12,000 young people graduating every year at Mohawk at Sheridan. So we have a lot of young people around, and what we need to do is to attract them here. So when we get into our policies, and those are when Gary talks about the OP, we need to recognize that we need to have I'll say affordable, but we need to have places that are not just affordable for young people. We have to create the kind of communities that young people are looking for. They don't all want to drive cars. They want to live in a different kind of environment. And we've got to start to build our community for the next generation. We can't just do everything for the historic generation that we have. We are a little older in Burlington, but compared to other areas in Ontario, we're actually not, we're not that different from the rest of Ontario. We do have the advantage of wealth. So we do have, for instance, we talked about startup opportunities. We actually have one of the larger angel financing groups.
So let's stop there. Let's define what angel financing or angel investors mean.
So when you start a business, you kind of go through a sequence. So the first thing you do is put in sweat equity. You go and work and don't make any money. The next thing you do is get family and friends to give you a hand. The next level is when you go to the next level and you go to an angel financer. Typically, these are groups that would put in anywhere from $50,000 to maybe $200,000 or $250,000. And an angel investor is the first investor when you're trying to start a business. So they get in, they obviously have higher risk. And
so is it like Dragon's Den?
It's like Dragon's Den.
It's like Dragon's Den.
Yeah, it's exactly like Dragon's Den, and they're looking for very big returns. Somebody says, my company's worth $1 million. They say, yeah, it's worth $200,000, and I'll give you this much for half. But that's where that initial financing comes. And we have one of the more active groups in Ontario. I think the second or third most active angel group in Canada operates right here out of Burlington. So
that's a amenity we have in our community that we can promote as far as attracting younger entrepreneurs to our city.
We have a lot of things going for us. We have the students graduating from the universities. We've got the quality of life with the waterfront, and we talk about all the time the quality of life. We do have angel financing. We have the province runs 2 programs. They're called Regional Innovation Centers. We actually have one in Hamilton and one here in Halton, Haltech. And that gives us the opportunity to connect to all those provincial dollars, and there's tremendous programs available, for instance, through Mars.
And Mars is
the Ontario Regional Innovation Centre in downtown Toronto. So tremendous access to information, to professional services, to training. So there are a huge number of services. And really what Ontario is finding, just as Canada is, Canada and Ontario are one of the very best places in the world to get a business started. The programs that we have, we literally rank #1 in starting a business. Where we're not making it is helping those businesses scale up. So they get started and they tend to stay small and then maybe roll out and sell, and we're not having the success of scale up. Scale up would be an example, BlackBerry or RIM went from small, scaled up. Here in Burlington, we have L3 Westcam.
Right.
Started very small, scaled up. The next phase is to take all of these small businesses that are going, and how do we help them scale up? And that's really going to be the focus, I think, in Ontario for the next 10 years.
So I think the terminology for that is accelerator, correct?
As you go, you typically go from an incubator to an accelerator. And that's, you've gone through an incubator process with a startup, you've got your IP done. An accelerator is really all about revenue growth. And that's where an awful lot of companies, they'll be technical, they'll do their IP. The challenge is commercializing it in a global market. And actually we see that as one of the really, really important things we can do here in Burlington. We're working on how we partner with the McMaster MBA program.
Okay, we're going to come back and talk more about that. I'm Mayor Rick Goldring. If you're just tuning in, this is Burlington Matters, and we're talking about economic development today with Gary Graham and Anita Cassidy and Frank McKeown. And we'll be right back after this break. I'm Mayor Rick Goldring, and welcome back to Burlington Matters. And on this program today, we are discussing economic development with Gary Graham, Anita Cassidy, and Frank McKeown of the Burlington Economic Development Corporation. There is a lot of great work going on through the BEDC. And Frank, why don't you tell us about some of the interesting projects that are coming forward in 2016?
Thank you very much, Rick. As we were just talking about youth and McMaster, we have a whole series of things we're trying to do in partnership with those universities and colleges, and just building a whole series of partnerships about attracting youth and keeping youth in the community. One of the things we did just a couple of weeks ago was Burlington Day at Mohawk College. We had about 30 manufacturers there and a number of other people, and we've got a video for that. So perhaps we can give you an idea of what we're doing with Mohawk.
So I want to thank the Burlington Economic Development Corporation for putting together this Ingenuity at Work Day for Burlington companies as well as companies just outside of Burlington to connect with the different programs and faculty and students here at Mohawk College.
The biggest reason we're here today is because we believe there's a huge opportunity to connect both the colleges and the universities with small businesses.
It's great to share the space today with so many businesses and so many people from the Halton region.
We have over 6,000 students graduating every year from Mohawk. We have about 900 students from Burlington, and obviously this is the workforce of the future, and we would like to, as much as possible, get them connected to our places of business so that they can help grow and stay competitive.
This is a great opportunity for us, obviously, to show what Mohawk can do as a partner.
I was so impressed by the level of technology, and it's really exciting to know that we have this level of innovation, creativity, and just drive and passion for the technologies of the future.
What we wanted to do is create the opportunity to have an open door, and by that we mean create a simple way for a small business to be able to access what's going on at the colleges so they can make use of all the different services that are taking place here.
We don't always realize what's in our backyard. And so I think it's really important to know that, a short 15-minute drive away, there is a hub of activity and innovation and ingenuity going on. And so I think this can only be a boon and a benefit for local businesses, but also local students as well.
We live in a very competitive world, and it's very important that our businesses that are represented here today become as competitive as they can be to compete globally for talent and for capital as well as for customers. And I want to thank Mohawk for the great job that they've done in giving us an introduction to all the different programs that they offer here. So that was a great initiative, connecting with Mohawk College and connecting manufacturers from the Burlington area. What else is coming up in 2016? Anita?
So that was a great example of how we're working on growth and scale-up programs, and that's really where we're focusing our energies in addition to the work on the OP in 2016. So one of the key areas we'll be working on is the Business Innovation District in Burlington, and I believe we've got a slide that we can show on that as well. So this is an area around the QEW corridor, and it's just really focused around building out an innovation district around the DeGroote campus area. So looking at, we've done studies on the different components to go in there, and one of the components that we're looking to move forward on in 2016 rather, is the Advanced Manufacturing Hub. So that's a partnership with Siemens, Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters Association, and McMaster. And when Gary was talking about that new leading edge in technology for manufacturing, that's really what this centre is going to be focused on. It's going to be focused on a term we call Industry 4.0. So that new cutting edge in technology focused on interesting and exciting things like additive manufacturing, so 3D printing as people know it.
How do you describe 3D printing? I saw an example at Mohawk Day, but how would you define it or describe it?
So 3D printing, basically what they do there is it's a way to do fast prototyping, and you can lay down layers. At Mohawk, they actually have one of the few machines in Canada that can do it in metal as well. And so what that can do, that allows companies to prototype faster. So if you're doing traditional manufacturing, such as you're in the food and beverage business and you're pushing things through a large assembly line, then additive manufacturing isn't going to be for you. If you're looking to move into a new area, if you're a new company who's got a new product idea that you're trying to test, if you're in a very high expensive niche like you're in the aeronautical business, then you can quickly, within a matter of hours, create new parts and test them and see whether or not they're working. So facilities like that, combined with our new Advanced Manufacturing Hub, where we're going to have services around helping companies scale up, access funding, get business service support around how do they create the business model around those ideas in conjunction with people like Mohawk who can do those physical activities to test their products. They're going to allow us to create a real base of advanced manufacturing in Southern Ontario that's based in Burlington. So that's going to be a key focus for us. Another key area that we're going to be working on, as Gary mentioned, is startups. So in addition to the Business Innovation District, we're also looking to bring in service delivery for startups in Burlington. So traditionally, and I'm not sure if viewers realize this, but we are a two-tier municipality here. And so certain services are delivered at the Burlington level and certain services at the region level. And so one of those services that's traditionally delivered at the region is startup and small business support. So we want to set up a physical location where we can bring all of those services into Burlington and help make it easier for small businesses and startups to get access to those services in Burlington and move their companies forward.
Great. So at the present time, the City of Burlington is working on the strategic plan. We're working on our official plan review and, of course, a strategic vision and long-term strategic plan, and our vision for 2025 for economic development. Gary, how do all these pieces come together? And I know you want to talk about the official plan and how important that is to achieving economic objectives.
Well, the rubber meets the road, so to speak, when decisions have to be made about whether or not to approve a particular development proposal. If you're a landowner and a developer, the clearer the path is for you and for the development idea that you have, the easier it is to organize your resources and move forward and get things done. When there isn't an alignment between the city's economic strategy and the city's official plan, you can find yourself in a very uncertain situation. And there you are presenting a development proposal that maybe goes to council for sign-off. Council is faced with conflicting objectives and a lack of clarity. Whereas if you have the economic plan informing the official plan, council will have a much better reference point to make decisions on whether to approve or not approve development proposals. We've got some serious amounts of land in this community that are in fallow from an economic standpoint, and to get them developed, having the OP or the official plan aligned with the economic plan is necessary. And we may find that moving away from strictly an employment land designation into a designation of mixed use might spur economic development.
So I'm going to ask you to define mixed use. Sorry for interrupting.
Sure. Well, mixed use would permit retail and other services on land that would otherwise be restricted to manufacturing, large employment situations. And the scale of manufacturing, the scale of employment is perhaps different now than it was 30 years ago. And so perhaps with that new scale, you can permit mixed use and unlock the employment potential of some of these lands. That's an important matter that we'll be looking at over the next 12 months.
So what are some of the challenges as far as getting at some of these fallow employment lands, for lack of a better description?
So this is certainly the challenge that Burlington's facing right now. Burlington has already used about 88% of its employment land. So, you know, we have some land, certainly as Gary described, we have some land that's open. It's got opportunity, but it's also got some challenges. What I like to say is it's our last 10 or 12% because it's the hardest, you know, it presents some challenges to develop. So we certainly have open land to develop, but we've also got some conservation issues associated with that land. We've got a chart up here, and you know, part of what's happened in Burlington is we built traditional, just like we have residentially, we built traditional employment areas. We've got a big swath, the blue there is employment land. And when Gary talks about mixed use, we don't have amenities in there, so employers want to be able to drop their dry cleaning off. They want to be able to walk across the street and have lunch. And really, the way we've developed our employment lands, you've got to get in your car and drive somewhere to go for lunch. The amenities aren't close, and we have to intensify the employment lands the same way as we really have to do from a residential point of view. The other comment I wanted to make is, you know, Gary talked about how important the OP is. You know, Halton and Burlington have been suburban environments where all of the development was greenfield. So our policies and our practices and our guidelines are really all geared around a greenfield development. And when you're
brand new development versus redevelopment.
Versus redevelopment.
Site.
And to give you an example how important it is competitively, if you have a business park sitting there in Halton that's open greenfield, you could go in there today, buy a piece of land, get your building approved, and build an office building and move in about 18 months. In a redevelopment environment, that's taking anywhere up to 5 years to do in Burlington. And that's where we're saying that just isn't competitive. And so much of our thrust right now in terms of looking at our OP and our policies is really about what do we have to do to rejig our policies so that they help us develop in a competitive time frame. So we have to be competitive, but we need a different set of rules so that we can develop, because it's more costly, and you can't have it take 5 years. Companies won't wait 5 years. And so those are the kind of things we have to do. We really have to get alignment around a different structure and a different reality in Burlington.
Very briefly, we have just about a minute and a half left. Transportation is obviously a huge issue. As we grow from an employment point of view, as we grow from a residential point of view, congestion cannot help but increase. So how do we address that? And I know, Frank, you've got your eye on the Gold Line as being such a great asset for our city.
So certainly from when Gary talks about mixed use, what we're looking at is we showed that chart before that showed where all the lands are. You know, really there's a large piece, but really we have a big strip of employment land that's right along the GO network. And the GO network really, south of the lands south of the QEW are really where our future is. We've got 3 GO stations, which is a huge competitive advantage. As that goes to 15-minute service, we almost have a subway system in town. And it's a small enough geographical area that we will have the opportunity to really improve our local transit so that people can get around the city, they can get to those employment areas. And at the same time, a young person could live in Toronto and could be at work in 35 or 40 minutes in Burlington. And what we have to look at how people are really moving, not just within the boundaries of our municipality. The biggest transit right now in our area is between Hamilton and Burlington. We have almost 35,000 people a day going back and forth, and yet we aren't linking our transit systems. And that's where the workers are coming from. That's where people are going to work. So we've got to change our perspective, look at the big picture.
On that note, thank you all very much for joining me today and having a great discussion about economic development. It's clear we have some great opportunities in the city, and we've got the right people in place to make things happen. So thank you very much to Gary Graham, the chair of the board of the Burlington Economic Development Corporation, Anita Cassidy, the manager of special projects, and Frank McKeown, the executive director of the Burlington Economic Development Corporation. And thank you for tuning in to Burlington Matters. If you have an idea for a show, let us know at the mayor's office, mayor@burlington.ca, and we'd be more than happy to consider that. On behalf of Gary, Anita, and Frank, thanks for tuning in to Burlington Matters, and we will see you next time.